In the first video, you looked at boss and machine politics, what they were, why did they come up, what did they do, and then looking at Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed is almost like a case study with that. So politics in the Gilded Age. So I introduced you to this whole idea of, like, compared to, or the beginnings, compared to, like, the Reconstruction era, where there's Republicans in Congress, you saw all these reforms happening. In the Gilded, or the late 1870s and to the 1900s, you see a good amount of inactivity. As people's attention shifted away to the development of the West and economic change, industrialization, labor unions, and urbanization. And so you actually see like a stalemate in politics during this time period. Now you should be asking yourself, the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age keeps on, labeling this era of American history as a Gilded Age. What is it? Who came up with it? Well, the term or the expression of the Gilded Age was first used by Mark Twain in 1873 as a title of a book. And this referred to like the superficial glitter of the new wealth, so prominently displayed in the last years of the 19th century. If you recall, the new wealthy, they sailed on those enormous yachts. They threw lavish parties. They dressed in, they lived in huge mansions. And so all this wealth is on the outside, but underneath that thin layer of gold, or that thin layer of wealth, there's a lot of problems that were brewing up, and there's a lot of people that were just trying to get by. So think of the term Gilded Age as almost like gold-covered dog crap. On the surface it looks nice, but once you scratch away at that thin layer of gold, what do you have left? Just a big piece of blank. And so, Gilded Age, that's kind of, that term that Mark Twain came up with to talk about, yeah, there's some wealth and some good stuff going on, but we have a lot of problems that we're seemingly ignoring that were caused by the growth of industry and cities. So, politics. During this time period, you saw, pretty much on the national level, a bunch of complacency, conservatism, and stalemates. And so why do we see these, politics and the national level, stalemated? A couple of factors included the prevalent political ideology of the time, campaign tactics of the two parties, and then party patronage. So what's the prevalent political idea of the time? Well, there's a belief in limited government. The idea of do-little government was in tune with two other popular ideas of the time: laissez-faire economics and social Darwinism. You top that off with that the courts narrowly interpreted the government's powers to regulate business and limited the impact of the few regulatory laws that Congress did pass. And so we've mentioned laissez-faire capitalism, we've mentioned social Darwinism, and that's going to seep into or affect the actions or the inactions of the government at the national level. The second thing, campaign tactics of the two parties. Between 1876 and 1892, the elections on the national level were really close. And one reason that they were so close is that the Republicans and the Democrats avoided taking strong positions on the issues. Basically what they were doing here, because they wanted to take a strong stance on the issues, these elections were so evenly matched, and the objective was to get out the vote and not alienate voters on these issues. And once again, that's why you see the rise of political machines and political bosses like Tammany Hall. Election campaigns of the time characterized by brass bands, flags, campaign buttons, picnics, free beer, crowd pleasing speeches. Both parties had strong organizations. Republicans usually at the state level, Democrats at the cities. The irony is that in the issue-free campaigns, this actually brings out nearly 80% of the eligible voters for presidential elections, much higher than the ones we see today. The high turnout was a function of strong party identification and loyalty. Pretty much connected, with voters' regional, religious, and ethnic ties. And so what are some of these campaign strategies that we see? Republican politicians kept the memories of the Civil War alive during the Gilded Age, figuratively waving this bloody shirt in every campaign, reminding the millions of veterans of the Union Army that their wounds had been caused by Southern Democrats and that Abraham Lincoln had been murdered by a Democrat. So this party of Lincoln, because of its anti-slavery past, kept the votes of reformers and African Americans. The other core of Republican voters came from the middle class, Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And Republicans who remain rooted in that Whig past supported an economic program of high protected tariffs for business. So you have a huge coalition for Republicans: veterans, African Americans, middle class, and businessmen. Democrats, on the other hand, after 1877, they could count on winning every election in the former states of the Confederacy. After 1877, the South became known as the Solid South because they, were solidly behind the Democratic Party all the way into the mid-20th century. In the North, Democratic strength came from big city political machines like Tammany Hall and the immigrant vote. Democrats up north were often Catholics, Lutherans, and Jews who objected to temperance and prohibition crusades conducted by these Protestant and largely Republican groups. And Democrats of the Gilded Age continue to believe in states' rights and the limited powers for the federal government, which is why they appeal to that immigrant group as well. And the last reason, the last characteristic of this stalemate is party patronage. Because neither party had an active legislative agenda, politics in this era was chiefly a game of gaining office, holding office, and providing government jobs to people that were loyal to your party. And so, patronage jobs, became more and more of an important issue, more so than anything else during that time period. And you will see some, presidents, get in trouble for not supporting this or not towing the party line of passing out government jobs to the party supporters. And you will see some examples or some attempts by the federal government to take care of, or try to solve the problem of party patronage or handing out these jobs to supporters. Presidential politics. Really, you don't see, anybody too notable during this time period. Rutherford B. Hayes, Compromise of 1877. James Garfield, assassinated in 1881. Chester Arthur, takes up the rest of his administration. You see Grover Cleveland. He deals with the money issue. Benjamin Harrison, Grover Cleveland, and a lot of times here the president himself is not as important as the issues that were at stake. And so in the next video we will look at the issues that the president and the national government had to deal with at this time.